Good day, I am Carlos, a trainer with SAS Australia. This is one of a series of videos from a webinar I delivered a while ago on how to take your visual analytics reports to the next level. I hope you enjoy them. Now we need to consider how are we going to lay this out. Layout, really important. A few different considerations for the layout. Limit the number of data sources used in the report. Recall that each report can use data that exists in multiple tables, and although there are no specific limits to the number of tables or the number of data sources that can be used in a report, as a best practice, each report should have, let's say, 3 or fewer data sources. Again, there is no limit, but then just need to consider this. This will keep your report from covering too many topics, and then can also improve the performance of the report. If you do need to use more than 6 data sources to tell your data story, maybe consider combining data sources in the data preparation phase. Having said that, this can be done in Visual Analytics, but still it's recommended that you prepare your data before using it in the report. Then also limit the number of pages used in the report. There are no technical limitations to a number of pages that can be added to the report. However, if you need more than 6 or 7 pages to tell the story, maybe consider breaking the story into multiple reports. Using fewer pages makes the report seem less complex and makes it easier for the user to remember the content presented on each of the pages. And then, of course, limiting the number of pages can also help with the performance of the report, especially if the report is viewed on a mobile device. Arrange the pages in a logical order that will advance the data story. And remember, of course, what we mentioned before about a table of contents or an introductory page. Consider using page links to control the navigation of the report. And I mentioned before the pop-up windows with additional details. Then talking about the individual pages, limit the number of objects on each page. No physical limit to the number of objects, but it is a best practice to use between 2 and 6 objects per page. This enables the user to focus on the data. This can improve comprehension. Also, to consider about the layout, make the more important objects larger. This will drive the interest and the attention of the user to the bigger object, and then they will use the smaller objects to add on to the main information. Be aware of the placement of the objects. Placing an object in the center of the page or in the top left corner can create a focal point. However, be aware that placement might change depending on the audience location. So for locations where they read from right to left, this would basically be top left, but top right, and so on. So in this example of the left, we have the main point here on the top center, and then the other things are sort of supplemental information. Objects that are side by side on the same row are intuitively understood to be related. So in this example of the right, we have information about South America and information about Europe, and this is related to this, this related to this, this related to this. So just the placement gives that additional insight. Here's an example of the layout. User picks Europe, that filters the map. User picks Italy, that filters these two. And then these two are sort of at the same level. So user picks a bar chart, it highlights, but works the other way around. User pick this one, highlights here. Again, you can configure all of this in Visual Analytics, but again, the arrangement of the objects depends on the culture. So all of this that I gave for cultures where we read from left to right, from top to bottom. If you're building for a different locale, you need to be aware of this.